So we're back to the future in Hunter x Hunter 398, and Hinrigh's presence continues to really intrigue me and interest me. Togashi has actually wrote a really interesting character with Hinrigh over the past couple of chapters. I'm actually really starting to enjoy his character. Well, I already enjoy him anyway, but I'm really starting to enjoy him more and more as he starts to integrate into our main cast, quote unquote. But the chapter opens up with basically Hxh, Nobunaga, and Phaeton trying to pressure this dude to go through the door so they can figure out the room's ability and why people just keep disappearing off the face of the earth. They're having some sort of disagreement on whether the old guy that they saw at the beginning a couple of chapters ago is either a conjurer or an emitter, and they're trying to figure out how it is, and they're both basically kind of getting into a little bit of an argument about the who's, what's, where's, and when's of whose power this is going to be. But we see the old dude open up the door, and he says, you know, is anyone in there? And he manages to walk through the door, and everything is completely fine. And it turns out it's actually just a toilet, basically. And he walks in, it's just a standalone potty. And they figure out that this toilet also has another door here leading in, so they can get into the toilet from the hallway and then into the actual main room from there. And they're also figuring out that, you know, it's basically like a trick room, basically. And it's in case anyone needs to buy time, basically. So if someone figures out that the door is a trap and decides to go through the wall, like Nobunaga did, it's so that they can buy time. And Hxh then starts to agree with Nobunaga, saying, okay, meaning if you reverse the logic, we enter through the wall and the trap won't activate, basically. So Nobunaga and they all agree, basically, saying like, this old dude, it's safe to enter. And this old dude is confused, because imagine not knowing about Nen and having these three experienced Nen users talking about Nen in front of you as if you knew about Nen, but you don't actually know about Nen, and they then force you into a room where potential Nen traps could be, and you're still sat there thinking, what the fuck is Nen? But that's basically what this dude is here right now. You know, he's so confused, and they force him into this room here, basically, and he says, well, nothing's happening, and he just wants to go back to his room, and he says, cool, and I'll try and leave him through this door here, and then he says, and then I can go back to my room. And Phaeton, again, I love the way Phaeton is drawn. I know obviously he was tiny in the flashbacks and stuff like that, but the fact that we just see the top of his head and the sword just wiggling at him, it makes me, you know, I think it's kind of funny. The dude walks through the door and back out into the hallway, and then he makes a full-on fucking full-tilt sprint for it, which I can't blame him, because if I saw these dudes in a room, I would probably also try and make a full-tilt sprint for it as well. But Phaeton ends up catching up to him, and he then says, pick one, left or right, threatening to cut off this dude's ears. Nobunaga and things are like, you know, you should probably come back, because once he gets going, he never stops. And he comes back into the room after entering through the toilet and into the main room, and then he obviously leaves through the hallway and then comes back in. He ends up disappearing as soon as he walks in, and they figure it out. Phaeton then says it seems to trigger even without the old man. Nobunaga then says at a glance, I don't see any support items, so rather than a boundary, it's more of a landmine type Nen ability. And we get this little explanation here in the corner. There's a boundary type. Multiple traps can be set over a wide area using Nen infused tools such as charms, ropes, tags, etc. to act as the triggers for that boundary type Nen ability. And then we also have a landmine type ability that says the trigger is made by applying Nen directly to a specific place. A strong compelling force means it is limited to 2 to 3 spots, and they start to narrow it down that this is most likely a landmine type of ability that is going on inside this room here. They then find another dude from the Shah family, I'm assuming, and they try and force him into the room, and as soon as he walks again, he disappears once more. And then they then deduce that obviously that this is not just a single-use item or booby trap here. Phaeton then says, I agree with Nobunaga, it's quicker to go ourselves, and says, I'll go ahead. And that's where they're interrupted with Wang and Hinrigh here. And this is where we see Hinrigh starting to step up to the plate, and he's, again, as I've said plenty of times, he's becoming one of my favorite characters in the series as he slowly integrates with the main troop here. And he basically says that he needs a stooge, and he has a transmitter, and he's going to use his Nen ability to make this transmitter a raw oyster. And then he says, we'll need a stooge to swallow it, and even if they get stripped for a cavity search, you know, it wouldn't turn up because they'll have swallowed an oyster and it's going to be inside of them. And he says it'll turn back once the Nen is depleted, which will last around about 2 hours, give or take. And the trooper are expecting one of those guys, the trooper expecting one of them to swallow this, basically. And this is where Hinrigh really steps up to the mark, and he says, I wasn't expecting you guys to trust me straight away, so I already have the stooge. It's actually me. I'm going to be the one to swallow this oyster. And he just gulps that shit down. And the trooper really surprised by this. And also, I actually really like this character development here, because I feel like Hinrigh is, I don't know, maybe a potential replacement for a member on the troop. I'm not going to lie, like, he's very useful. It's dependent on who, but I kind of like that this is like the olive branch, and the troop aren't sort of used to this kind of thing. And you can see them all sort of shocked by this, where this one dude is like straight to the point and is willing to lay down his life basically to help them out, to help them help him kind of thing. Hinrigh then explains that he's got a receiver basically, and depending on how close they are to the hideout, the noise from the receiver will be a more high pitch, and these bars will light and turn red basically, but it doesn't take into account altitude, so they need to be mindful that if it's going off and it's going crazy but they can't see it right in front of them, it's either either up or down, basically. And without this, he explains it all to him, and he just walks straight through here. And Nobunaga then says, I like this guy. He says the bare minimum and just gets straight to it. But we see Hinrigh get transported to this, basically this kill room, and if you've ever played Call of Duty Zombies, it reminded me for some reason of Call of Duty Zombies. But the minute he hits the ground, then he turns around and draws a weapon ready to basically be attacked, and he finds that no one is actually in the room at all. Instead, the room just looks completely derelict and creepy. It's hard to imagine that this room is this derelict and this destroyed and it's still within the same ship. Like, if I was to put on my massive conspiracy hat here, I would say that this ship and this room wasn't even in the same place here. But as Hinrigh's looking around and he's trying to deduce some sort of information about this room, none other than Nobunaga appears behind them, and yeah, it turns out that Nobunaga decided, fuck it, I'm going to be the one that's going to go and join him on this little expedition. Hinrigh is obviously confused. He's just sort of like, yo, why are you here? He says for some co-op play, of course, and he says your chances of survival go up when you're not on your own. And if I'm honest, I've got to agree with Nobunaga here, because right now the troop survival rate for anyone on a solo mission right now is kind of at an all-time low, because the past couple of members that have been finished off by Hisoka have all been on their own and not in pairs. So it is wise for the troop to be staying in pairs or duos, or at least with someone that they're familiar with and at least trust. And I'm assuming that this is the situation here, that Nobunaga actually trusts Hinrigh, as he's already said that he likes him. So it's kind of nice to see the troop forming that kind of bond. Hinrigh and Nobunaga end up investigating this room, and Nobunaga ends up extending his own olive branch here, and he says, sorry, I couldn't be bothered to remember your name before. And Hinrigh reminds him that his name is actually Hinrigh, and they then decide that they should look around here. Nobunaga goes over to a wall, and he's touching a wall here, and he's using his nen basically to sense the other nen here, and he says, this is their hideout, no doubt about it. He says, just wait and see. And Hinrigh's a bit confused as to why he is certain of this information, and Nobunaga then slices at the wall. He says that the wall is guarded by nen, as we see none of his attacks have any damages on it. There's some slice marks there, but then they just fade away with nen, I imagine. He says it's guarded by nen, and Nobunaga theorizes that a conjurer, transmuter maybe, could even be a specialist. It's easy to destroy and then use a stage, but even my katana couldn't cut it, so there must be a strong limitation. It's probably the closer the user is, the stronger the stage. And then we get this creepy panel of Morena just sitting there smirking. I'm assuming here that Morena knows that Nobunaga has just sliced her wall, or sliced the wall, and I'm wondering if, because Morena's nen abilities are being passed down through her contagion to the guy whose nen ability this room is, I wonder if she, by extension, can feel what is going on with his nen. It would be an interesting plot twist if that was what it was the case. Kind of like a spider web, right? She's sat at the center as the spider, and all the web and all the little vibrations that go out, she can feel everything. So it would be kind of an interesting twist if that was the case with contagion here, because it seems a bit too coincidental that this panel was just put there with Morena just sat there creepily smiling away. We see Nobunaga and Hinrigh then start to investigate the room, and they decide, let's start by opening the doors and finding out what's going on. And they open the doors in the room and find a shower, a bathroom, 3 toilets, and basically Nobunaga says, wait, if we just wait here, one of them is going to come back to do their business, right? And Hinrigh reminds Nobunaga that he picked the plan of action, basically, and doesn't want to sit there. And Hinrigh says, I'm sure Nobunaga-san can protect the transmitter if I die. Nobunaga then, again, with a second olive branch here, says it's just Nobunaga. You can drop the honorific. Hinrigh obviously says it's Nobunaga-san, which I didn't actually pick up on at first, but now that I'm reading it again, I now notice this detail. The chapter then closes out with Hinrigh and Nobunaga opening this door, basically, and finding what I can only describe as like a laundry room, maybe. I can't really see what's properly in there, but the room is creepy, and this whole area is creepy. And I'm going to be honest, I have a video coming out about this in a couple of days' time, but I don't think the Phantom Troupe are going to survive much longer, if I'm honest. As much as I love Nobunaga and I love Hinrigh, Hinrigh's loyalties lie with the Haley family, and I don't think that if Nobunaga is in trouble, I don't think that Hinrigh is going to stay around to try and sacrifice himself and save Nobunaga. I think it's obviously going to be Hinrigh's family before Nobunaga, and I think this is potentially the next victim of the Phantom Troupe that is going to leave the series, basically. So, but I can't see him going out like a bitch. I can see him going out in a flash of glory. But that is everything from me. That was chapter 398 of Hunter x Hunter. Let me know what you thought of the chapter in the comments down below, and if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys all in the next one. Much love, big kisses, peace.